Before the rise of empires, before the splitting of seas or the carving of tablets, there lived a boy whose dreams defied the boundaries of reality. A single dream, stars, sun, and moon bowing before him, would unravel brotherhood, unleash betrayal, and ultimately lift kingdoms from famine. Joseph, son of Jacob, descendant of Isaac and Abraham, was not born into power. He was born into prophecy. And like those before him, he was destined to be tested not in war or conquest, but in patience, purity, and pain. He would not carry a staff. He would not part the sea. His weapon was not thunder, but beauty. His miracles were not plagues, but visions. And still, his journey would echo louder than armies. He began in his father's arms, loved, protected, exalted. But the love that clothed him in a robe of many colors would soon mark him for jealousy. His brothers, heirs of a prophet, became his first enemies. Their envy would tear the robe, but never touch the destiny stitched beneath it. He would fall into a well, into slavery, into a dungeon. Yet every descent was a hidden rise. Every betrayal, a stone in the foundation of divine purpose. In chains, he was free. In darkness, he saw more than those in light. In prison, he unlocked the dreams of others while holding the key to his own hidden future. This is not merely a tale of sorrow turned to triumph. It is the unfolding of the most complete story in the Quran, a narrative praised by God himself as Ahsan al-Qisas, the best of stories. It is a story of a man who bore no hatred, who ruled without pride, and forgave with the grace of the heavens. From a whisper in a father's tent to the throne rooms of Egypt, Joseph's journey is not just history, it is divine orchestration. This is the story of a prophet whose silence spoke louder than kings, whose beauty unveiled mercy, and whose patience carried nations through famine. This is the story of Prophet Joseph. Birth and early life. In the quiet valleys of Canaan, where prophets walked and the wind carried whispers of heaven, a child was born whose name would echo across deserts and dynasties. He was not born in a palace, nor among armies, but in a prophet's tent, humble, sacred, and wrapped in the prayers of generations. His name was Yousuf, known to the world as Joseph, the son of Jacob, grandson of Isaac, great-grandson of Abraham. His birth was not merely the arrival of another son. It was the arrival of destiny wrapped in innocence. His mother, Rachel, had longed for a child. Her prayers, whispered in the stillness of the night, were finally answered. She cradled him in trembling arms, and Jacob, his eyes aged by visions and trials, looked upon the infant's face and saw a light unlike any he had seen before. It was not merely beauty. It was something eternal. A soul marked. From the moment he took his first breath, Joseph was different. Where other children cried in hunger, he watched in silence. Where others played wildly, he moved with grace. His brothers ran through the hills, wild and restless, but Joseph stayed near his father, listening, watching, absorbing. There was a depth in his eyes, as though he remembered something he hadn't yet lived. Jacob loved him fiercely, not for his outward charm, but for what he sensed within. He taught him early the stories of the heavens, the path of Abraham, the covenant of one God. Joseph listened not with curiosity, but with hunger. And with every passing year, his light grew brighter. But that light came with a cost. In the shadows of the camp, his brothers watched. They saw the way Jacob looked at him. They noticed the way he spoke to Joseph in secret, while they were left with commands. They saw the colorful robe their father wrapped around Joseph's shoulders, a garment not of cloth, but of distinction. And in their hearts, seeds of resentment took root. Still, Joseph remained humble. He did not speak of himself. He did not boast. But when the dreams came, he could not stay silent. One night, the stars whispered. The heavens unfolded. And Joseph saw a vision that would haunt history. Behold, I saw 11 stars, and the sun and the moon, prostrating to me. He told his father first. Not out of pride, but out of awe. Jacob's face changed not in confusion, but in recognition. The dream was not childish imagination. It was a divine signal. The boy had been chosen. "O my son," Jacob said, "do not relate your dream to your brothers, lest they plot against you. Indeed, Satan is a clear enemy." The warning was gentle, but it came too late. For the brothers had already seen the difference. And the dream only confirmed what they feared: Joseph was destined to rise above them. But Joseph did not seek greatness. He sought truth. He obeyed. He served. He stayed silent when others would speak. And even as jealousy swirled around him like a storm, he remained still, a mirror of purity in a world beginning to twist. He was still just a boy. But heaven was already preparing the descent. And the earth was already digging a pit. World at that time. The world into which Joseph was born was torn between revelation and ruin. In the hills of Canaan, prophets still walked the earth. The memory of Abraham's monotheism lingered in small tribes who remembered the one true God. Yet beyond these tents of truth, idolatry flourished like wildfire. In the east, Babylon basked in the pride of stars and sorcery. Priests read omens from entrails, kings bowed to clay idols, and empires were built on blood. In the west, Egypt reigned, a land of pyramids, gods with falcon heads, and pharaohs who claimed divinity. The Nile fed their crops, but false gods fed their hearts. Even in Canaan, Jacob's neighbors had returned to pagan rites, burning incense to wooden deities, offering sons to fire. Morality decayed. Greed masked as governance. Truth whispered. Power roared. The world had forgotten the covenant. It had traded faith for spectacle, and virtue for conquest. While prophets still passed through fields like quiet flames, the people turned their backs, chasing stone gods, silencing conscience. This was the world Joseph would face. A world where truth was buried deep, and dreams were dismissed as madness. A world where beauty invited envy, and purity was punished. And yet this was the stage on which God would reveal one of his greatest stories. Signs of prophethood. Long before the throne. Long before the chains. The signs were there. They appeared not in thunder or fire but in dreams. Visions that came not from fear or imagination, but from a realm beyond sight. As a young boy, Joseph saw the stars bow to him, 11 stars, the sun and the moon, prostrating in silent reverence. A vision so precise, it pierced through time. He told his father Jacob, himself a prophet, and saw the shift in his eyes. This was no ordinary dream. This was a sign. And it wasn't he the only one. There was something about Joseph's presence, a calm, a clarity, a radiance. His beauty was unmatched, not just in form, but in spirit. Those who looked at him saw more than a face, they saw light. His voice carried the weight of purity. His silence spoke conviction. He understood without being told. He obeyed without question. He feared God even before he knew his laws. His father, a prophet guided by revelation, knew what others did not. The son was chosen. Not only to witness dreams, but to interpret them, to unlock hearts, to carry truth where truth had long been buried. The signs came quietly. But they burned bright. And the world was not ready. Call to prophethood. He was still a boy when the world turned against him. The moment Joseph shared his dream, the quiet war began. His brothers, men of blood and pride, heard the vision and saw not wonder, but threat. They did not understand prophecy. They understood rivalry. And so they conspired. One morning, as sunlight touched the valley floor, Joseph walked with trust, unaware he would not return home. His brothers seized him, stripped him of his robe, the symbol of favor, and threw him deep into a dry well. A dark, cold, silent grave. Alone beneath the earth, he stared upward at a sky that once showed him stars bowing. He was a boy, abandoned, but not forgotten. So we inspired him, "You will surely inform them of this affair while they do not perceive." Quran 12:15. It was the first divine whisper. Not heard by others. But it sank into his soul like fire in the snow. In that pit of betrayal, the call began. He was pulled from the well not by family, but by passing strangers. Sold as a slave in Egypt, his wrists bound, his name unknown, his fate unraveling far from home. Yet wherever he was taken, eyes turned to him. He moved with poise. He carried light. He was bought not as a laborer but as a treasure by Al-Aziz, the high official of Egypt. In the halls of foreign gods and golden walls, Joseph served. Quietly. Faithfully. But the light within him only grew. And so did the tests. He was young, radiant. And soon, the wife of Al-Aziz, blinded by desire, cast herself upon him. A test that would have broken kings. But Joseph did not stumble. He said, "I seek the refuge of Allah. Indeed, He is my master, who has made my stay good." Quran 12:23. He fled temptation like fire. He chose prison over pleasure. Chains over sin. And thus, the boy who had once fallen into a well, now walked into a prison by choice to protect his purity. And in that prison, the miracle unfolded. Men began dreaming. In the silence of stone walls, two inmates came to him. One saw himself pressing wine. The other saw birds eating from bread on his head. They were troubled, seeking answers. Joseph listened not just with ears, but with a heart sharpened by divine truth. As for one of you, he will serve wine to his master. And as for the other, he will be crucified, and birds will eat from his head. The matter has been decreed. Quran 12:41. His interpretations were exact. Time proved him right. One was set free. The other executed. And still, Joseph remained, waiting. But heaven waits with purpose. Years passed. Egypt thrived until a new dream rose. Pharaoh himself, ruler of the land, Lord in the eyes of his people, was disturbed by visions no one could decipher. 7 fat cows being devoured by 7 lean ones, 7 green ears of grain, and 7 dry. Quran 12:43. The palace trembled. Sorcerers failed. Priests mumbled. No answer satisfied. And then Joseph was remembered. The servant who once shared a cell with him spoke, "I will inform you of its interpretation, so send me forth." Joseph, still pure, still patient, gave the answer calmly. Not for reward. Not for release. But for truth. You will plant for 7 years diligently. Then will come 7 years of great famine. Quran 12:47-48. But he asked for nothing, only that his innocence be known. Pharaoh summoned him not just to the palace but to authority. And Joseph stood before the most powerful man in Egypt, unshaken, his past now paved as prophecy. He was not the boy in the well. He was not the prisoner in the shadows. He was the one with the knowledge of the unseen. A prophet, awakened. Pharaoh offered him power. Not as a slave but as a minister. A guardian over the storehouses of the land. Joseph accepted, not for status, but for service. He had seen the famine in the dream. And he knew that God had placed him there not to rule but to rescue. And so, Joseph was elevated. A foreigner. A believer in one God. Standing at the heart of Egypt, managing wealth, feeding the poor, protecting a nation that did not know his name years earlier. But the call of prophethood was not complete. Years passed. The famine struck. Far away, in Canaan, his brothers, those who had betrayed him, now suffered. And so they came to Egypt, seeking grain. They stood before him, bowed low, not recognizing the man they once cast into darkness. The dream had come true. 11 stars. Bowing, not by command but by divine orchestration. But Joseph did not gloat. He wept. He tested their hearts, not in cruelty, but in justice. He placed their youngest brother, Benjamin, in his care. He challenged their remorse. And when it was clear they had changed, he revealed himself, I am Joseph. Is my father still alive? Quran 12:90. Silence fell. Then tears. Then joy. He forgave them. Not with reluctance but with the mercy of a prophet. He sent his shirt back to Jacob, the same father who had once clutched a bloodied robe, and when the shirt was pressed to his face, the blind prophet regained his sight. Joseph had answered dreams, saved nations, restored families, and above all, carried the legacy of monotheism through every prison and palace. His call to prophethood was not a moment. It was a journey. One written in dreams, carved in stone, and bathed in divine grace. Message and teaching. The message of Prophet Joseph Yousuf was never shouted from mountaintops nor carved in stone tablets. His mission unfolded in silence, hardship, and forgiveness. His teaching was not through sermons, but through living example, where every moment became a lesson, and every trial, a verse. At its heart, Joseph's message was Tawhid, the oneness of God. Even in the depths of a foreign prison, he spoke to his cellmates with clarity and conviction, O my two companions of prison, are many different lords better, or Allah the one, the irresistible? Quran 12:39. Here, in the shadows of captivity, he planted the seeds of faith. He did not just interpret dreams, he redirected hearts. He gently led people from confusion to clarity, from polytheism to divine unity. But Joseph's message went beyond belief, it was morality in motion. He taught the world that power is a trust, not a throne. When he was appointed as Egypt's treasurer, he did not seek wealth or status. He said, appoint me over the storehouses of the land. Indeed, I am a knowledgeable guardian. Quran 12:55. His governance during the years of abundance and famine became a model of justice, planning, and mercy. He showed that a prophet could be both spiritual and strategic, that divine guidance could manage an empire without corruption. Through his trials, Joseph taught chastity over compromise, choosing prison rather than sin. In a world consumed by desires and deception, his rejection of the advances of Al-Aziz's wife became one of the clearest messages in religious history. My Lord, prison is more beloved to me than that to which they invite me. Quran 12:33. Through this, he became a living example of resisting temptation for the sake of Allah. His restraint was not weakness, it was worship. And above all, his most profound teaching was forgiveness. When he stood before his brothers, those who had plotted his death, torn his robe, sold him for silver. He did not seek revenge. Instead, he said, "No blame will there be upon you today. May Allah forgive you, and He is the most merciful of the merciful." Quran 12:92. In that moment, Joseph elevated human dignity to a level few could reach. He showed that mercy is greater than vengeance, and that those closest to God carry hearts free from hatred. He also reminded us that faith does not shield us from hardship but transforms it. His life was filled with loss, separation, and betrayal. Yet at every step, he chose faith. At every turn, he surrendered not to fate, but to the wisdom of his Lord. Joseph's teachings remain relevant across generations, in resisting evil while alone, in leading with integrity, in forgiving without condition, in trusting God's plan even when all doors close. His message was never just for Egypt. It was for all who are thrown into wells, betrayed by those they love, or tested beyond reason. It whispers to the broken, the forgotten, the falsely accused, "Stay firm. God sees. The dream will return. And when it does, rise with grace, not vengeance." Challenges and opposition. From the start, Joseph's life was framed by betrayal. His first challenge wasn't Pharao or famine, it was his own blood. His brothers, driven by jealousy, threw him into a well, tearing both his robe and his childhood. That betrayal cut deeper than swords. Then came slavery, sold in a foreign land, stripped of his name, bound by chains. No one knew he was a prophet. To Egypt, he was property. Yet the harshest trial came wrapped in desire. The wife of Al-Aziz, consumed by lust, tried to drag him into sin. When he resisted, she turned desire into accusation. Joseph, pure, innocent, was thrown into prison, buried under lies. Years passed. Forgotten. Behind stone walls, surrounded by criminals, he could have drowned in bitterness. But he did not curse God. He waited. Even after his name was cleared and power was offered, he faced new trials, governing Egypt through famine, remaining righteous amid a corrupt court, and standing firm when the very brothers who betrayed him bowed at his feet. Through it all, Joseph never broke. He faced storms in silence. And every challenge only made his light shine brighter. He did not fight his enemies. He outlasted them with truth, legacy, and impact. Joseph's story did not end in a palace, it began there. He rose from a well and reigned from a throne, but his legacy was not wealth or empire, it was faith woven through hardship. The world remembers him not as a ruler of Egypt, but as a man who stood alone and never lost his light. To this day, he is the standard of beauty, not just in form, but in heart. The Quran says he was given half of all worldly beauty, yet it was his inner radiance that changed destinies. His name echoes in synagogues, churches, and mosques. In every faith, Joseph is the man whose purity conquered temptation, whose dreams shaped nations, whose mercy healed betrayal. His life is not just remembered, it is studied, wept over, revered. In every prisoner's cry for justice, in every innocent soul resisting sin, in every dreamer standing in silence, trusting the unseen, Joseph's spirit lives on. He was never just a boy in a well. He was the proof that those who are buried by the world, can still rise by the will of God. Death and burial. He ruled Egypt with wisdom, fed nations in famine, and forgave those who once betrayed him. Yet Joseph never forgot where he came from. Canaan, the land of his fathers, remained etched in his heart until the end. In the twilight of his life, surrounded by honor and wealth, Joseph knew his journey was nearing its end. But his final wish was not for monuments or legacy. It was a whisper of return, when Allah brings you out of this land, carry my bones with you. Quran 12:99 echoed in Exodus 13:19. He died in Egypt, far from the tents of Jacob and the fields of Hebron. The people mourned, for he had saved them not just from hunger, but from ruin. His wisdom had preserved an empire. Yet his soul belonged to another land. His body was embalmed, placed in a coffin, and carefully kept for generations. Centuries later, when Moses led the Israelites out of Egypt, he honored that ancient promise. The bones of Joseph were carried through the desert and finally laid to rest in Shechem, a sacred burial in the land of the prophets. There, in the soil of his ancestors, the dreamer found his peace. He was a stranger in Egypt, a slave, a prisoner, a ruler, but he never lost sight of the covenant. Joseph died as he lived with dignity, patience, and faith in the unseen. 10. Interfaith perspective. Islamic perspective. In Islam, Yousuf Prophet Joseph holds a place of extraordinary honor. His story is preserved in Surah Yousuf, the 12th chapter of the Quran, and is the only prophetic biography in the Quran told in continuous narrative form. Allah himself declares it, "We relate to you, O Muhammad, the best of stories." Quran 12:3. Muslims view Joseph as a prophet of immense purity, perfect patience, and divine wisdom. His journey from the jealousy of his brothers to his rise in Egypt is seen as a metaphor for how God's plan unfolds in hidden and majestic ways. His resistance to temptation, his years of unjust imprisonment, and his ability to interpret dreams are all seen as miracles mu'jizat granted by Allah. In Islamic teaching, his greatest trait was his sabr, patience in adversity, and his willingness to forgive his brothers without vengeance, reflecting the mercy of Allah. He is also revered as the symbol of beauty. The Prophet Muhammad once said that Joseph was given half the beauty of all creation. In Islamic tradition, he is not merely a hero of the past, he is an enduring example for those tested in life, falsely accused, or forced to wait for divine justice. Jewish perspective. In Judaism, Yousuf is one of the most detailed and psychologically rich figures in the Tanakh Hebrew Bible, specifically in the book of Genesis chapters 37 to 50. He is remembered as a tzaddik, a righteous man who overcame betrayal, exile, and moral temptation. Jewish tradition sees Joseph as a bridge between the patriarchal period of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and the birth of the Israelite nation in Egypt. His dreams and their interpretations are taken seriously, marking him as a visionary and prophetic figure. Rabbinic literature reflects deeply on Joseph's ethical strength, especially his refusal of Potiphar's wife, and considers it an example of resisting the evil inclination Yetzer Hara. In Kabbalistic thought, Joseph is associated with Yesod, the foundation representing integrity, humility, and divine connection. His reunion with his brothers is read as a powerful moment of teshuvah, repentance and healing within the family of Israel. Joseph's bones, which were carried out of Egypt during the Exodus and buried in Shechem, symbolize the fulfillment of long-standing promises and the sacredness of ancestral memory. Christian perspective. In Christianity, Joseph is often viewed through a typological lens of foreshadowing or type of Jesus Christ. The parallels are striking and frequently explored in Christian theology. Joseph was betrayed by his brothers, just as Jesus was betrayed by his own. Joseph was sold for silver, and so was Jesus. Joseph was falsely accused and imprisoned, yet he remained sinless, as did Christ. Joseph became the savior of nations during famine, just as Jesus offers salvation to the world. Although not considered a prophet in Christian doctrine, Joseph is highly respected as a man of virtue, chastity, and forgiveness. His ability to interpret dreams is recognized as a gift from God, and his rise to power in Egypt is seen as part of God's redemptive plan. Church fathers like Origen, Jerome, and Augustine saw in Joseph a symbol of Christ-like endurance, innocent yet afflicted, exalted yet humble. Christian sermons often draw lessons from Joseph's trials for those who endure suffering, especially unjustly. In Catholic tradition, the story of Joseph is sometimes paired with Saint Joseph, the earthly father of Jesus, due to their shared names, dreams, and righteousness. Unified spiritual message. Despite doctrinal differences, all three Abrahamic faiths honor Joseph as a figure of righteousness, patience, and divine purpose. To Muslims, he is a prophet chosen by God, whose life teaches unwavering faith and trust in divine timing. To Jews, he is the righteous Zadok, a dreamer whose integrity preserved his people. To Christians, he is a Christ-like archetype, embodying innocence, suffering, and salvation. His story has been retold in synagogues, churches, mosques, and homes for thousands of years, each tradition seeing in him a reflection of their deepest truths. He is a son, a brother, a servant, a prisoner, a ruler, a forgiver, and above all, a vessel of divine will. And through the well, the palace, and the prison, his life continues to echo one eternal truth: indeed, my Lord is subtle in what he wills. Indeed, it is he who is the knowing, the wise. Quran 12:100.